What up, guys? Welcome to the video. Before we get into it, I want to address the 3 most common questions about this bike. Number 1, can you take it on the highway? The answer to that question is obviously yes. I'm on the highway right now. This bike has no trouble keeping up. Number 2, is it fast enough? This bike is faster than basically any car on the road. So yes, it is fast enough. And number 3, is it a good beginner bike? No, it is not a good beginner bike. It's a great beginner bike. For returning viewers, welcome back to the channel. For new viewers, my name is Jeff, and I've had a 2016 Yamaha R3 for about 6 months now. It wasn't that long ago that I was in your shoes trying to figure out what to buy as my first bike. I researched and watched videos for hours on hours for weeks on end. I knew I wanted to get started with a smaller displacement bike, but I wasn't sure what exactly to get. There's a whole host of smaller displacement bikes on the market in America, and I narrowed my search down to the sport and naked sport segments. There you've got the KTM Duke and RC390, the Kawasaki Ninja 400, the Kawi Z400, the Honda CBR 300R and CB 300R, and of course the R3's naked sport brother, the new MT-03. In a moment, I'll get to the specifics about what I like and what I dislike about the R3, but keep in mind that a lot of the things I'm going to cover are also going to apply to the newest generation R3, since outside of the suspension and the cosmetic upgrades, they're basically the exact same bike. First, I'll quickly fill you in on my thought process when deciding which bike to buy. I had a fairly tight budget for my bike because I just replaced my car. I'd budgeted about $3,500, not including gear, so this automatically excluded a few of the bikes I previously mentioned. I wanted something with low mileage, in good running order, and 0 body damage. In my local market, there weren't any Ninja 400s, Z400s, or KTMs that fit into my price range. There were, however, plenty of Ninja 300s, Honda CBR 300Rs, and Yamaha R3s, as well as a ton of beat-up Ninja 250s. I tried to keep in mind that this was going to be my first bike and I'd be learning on it and eventually likely replacing it, so I wasn't married to any particular brand. Honda, Kawasaki, Yamaha, they all make excellent machines and I knew I couldn't go wrong picking any of them. I'll be honest though, I liked the way the R3 looked better than any of the other previously mentioned 300 class bikes. Eventually I found an immaculate R3 with a little over 1,000 miles on it and I pulled the trigger on that deal. At this point I was still so green that I didn't even ride it home myself. I had my brother come with me, he test rode it, and he rode it home for me. Since then I put about 1,500 miles on the bike and I've had my fair share of adventures and some mistakes along the way. Here's what I love about the Yamaha R3. Number 1 on this list has to be its styling. It's just a sexy looking bike with all the right angles. Despite its almost neutral seating position, the bike still looks pretty damn aggressive. Of course, this point definitely comes with a few caveats. There are a few must-do modifications this bike needs in order for it to look amazing. The first is, of course, the rear fender eliminator. The rear fender eliminator, along with the addition of LED rear turn signals, really cleans up the rear of this bike nicely, instead of having that huge plastic mess back there. The next thing you want to do are change the enormous bulbous front turn signals. I swapped those with these TST Industries Halo GTR turn signals. The running lights definitely add to the bike's looks, and they help with keeping you visible at night. The other thing you may want to consider changing is the exhaust. The previous owner of my bike swapped the stock exhaust for this Yoshimura slip-on Y series. I definitely think it looks better than the stock one, and without the baffle, it actually sounds pretty damn good. The number 2 reason why I love this bike is its power. Despite being a small displacement bike, as a new rider, you're not going to be disappointed by the R3's capabilities. It's faster than just about any car on the street, and you're not going to have any problem getting up to speed or passing on the highway. The R3 is fast enough for new riders to feel like they're on a rocket, but it's also forgiving enough that if you hit a bump and you accidentally jerk the throttle, you're not going to lose control of the bike. Number 3 on this list is the bike's weight. At 364 pounds wet, this bike is super easy to maneuver. It's incredibly easy to pull out of my cramped garage, roll it around in the backyard, and pick it up after an accident. Ask me how I know. Number 4 on this list is the R3's low seat height. The seat height is only about 30.7 inches, which means virtually any rider will be able to get their feet planted on the ground at a stop. For reference, I'm only about 5'7", and I could easily flat-foot this bike. Of course, this bike isn't perfect, and after having ridden it for about 6 months, there are a few things I dislike about it. Number 1 here has to be the vibration in the bars and the foot pegs at high speeds. At highway cruising speeds above 65 miles per hour, the vibration is bearable, but not for extended periods. Handle and foot peg vibrations become quite noticeable after a while. For reference, cruising in 6th gear at 75 miles per hour puts you at about 8,000 RPM. 85 in 6th gear puts you at 9,000 RPM. I took the bike on a 3-hour trip from New York City to upstate New York and had to stop twice to stretch my legs. By the time I'd arrived, my hands had a pins and needles feeling for about a half hour after stopping. If you want to avoid that vibration, you're going to have to cruise below 65 miles per hour in 6th gear. The second thing that I dislike about this bike was the throttle travel distance. Twisting the throttle from closed to wide open is just about impossible without having to reorient your hand on the grip about 2/3 of the way through the turn. As I got more comfortable on the bike riding at higher speeds, I opted to swap the standard R3 throttle tube with the R6 throttle tube. This shortened the throttle travel and increased the throttle response a little bit. It made the bike seem a little faster, and it also made the throttle more comfortable. Now, the third thing I dislike about this bike is actually also the weight. Even though having a light bike makes it easier to maneuver and control for a beginner, it also lets the wind push you around more easily. The first time I experienced a strong gust of wind riding across the Verrazano Bridge was pretty damn terrifying. Number 4 on this list definitely has to be the seat. After riding this bike for an extended period, anything longer than an hour or so, you're going to start to wonder if Yamaha had made this seat exclusively out of concrete. The seat is perfect for short trips, but tolerable at best when making a long trip. Plan to stop at least once every hour to stand up and stretch your legs. So, overall, would I recommend the Yamaha R3 to somebody just starting out? Absolutely. Besides the fact that it's a beautiful looking machine, it's a relatively inexpensive bike with enough power to put a smile on your face while also being forgiving enough for a newbie rider. It's perfect for around town and for short jaunts on the highway. Also, from what I've heard and seen, the 2nd gen R3 has made some pretty significant improvements to the bike's suspension. So if you grab one of those, you're in for an even better ride. It's obviously not the fastest bike on the road, but goddamn is it fun to ride. If you're leaning towards getting a smaller displacement bike as your first motorcycle, you'll have plenty of options to choose from. Yamaha, Kawasaki, Honda, Suzuki, they all make excellent machines and you'll likely be served perfectly well by any of them. That said, I'm still an R3 fanboy, and despite some of its shortcomings, it's still an excellent bike and I highly recommend that you get one for yourself. Anyway, if you've made it to the end of the video, I appreciate you. Hit that like button and subscribe for more content. Thanks for watching, and I'm going to catch you in the next one. Ride safely.